Alrighty, I think we can go ahead and get started. Give a couple of minutes after the top of the hour for others to join. Thank you all so much and good afternoon. Welcome to our emergency management webinar series. Today we'll focus on emergency response and automated readiness to support government missions. Today we'll cover topics ranging from trends and the rise in emergency management to how solutions like ServiceNow can improve transparency, responsiveness, and speed for crises and emergencies. So before we begin, we just have a few meeting logistics to cover. When you enter, you are muted and you should be unable to mute, but please try to stay muted throughout today's presentation just to avoid any hiccups or interruptions. Feel free to check your audio settings for your sound. If you cannot hear, ensure you have the right setting for your speakers, and you can select a headset if you're using a headset to listen in. And then lastly, we ask that you send all of your questions throughout today's presentations in the chat just to avoid any audio interruptions. We'll be responding to the questions out loud throughout pauses throughout the presentation and at the end. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Teams, we have a few shortcuts here on how to use the communication tools. So today you'll hear from myself as well as my colleague Jimmy as your speakers. My name is Brittany Thorburn. I am a solution sales executive for our government workflows division, supporting agencies across the federal government solve mission-related and customer experience challenges. Jimmy, I'll pass it over to you for a quick introduction as well.
Thank you very much. How's it going, everyone? My name is Jimmy McDaniel. Again, as Brittany mentioned, I'm a senior solution architect here at ServiceNow, and as Brittany also mentioned, I cover our government workflows solutions, and so we'll be seeing a demo here shortly that I'll be leading.
Thanks, Jimmy. So for today's agenda, we plan to walk through 4 main categories. Challenges in emergency response, how you can accelerate emergency response with ServiceNow solutions, some customer stories around responses to emergencies, and a solution demonstration where we'll walk through an example of an emergency assistance request. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with any further questions at the end. All right, let's begin. So with today's increased growth in emergencies, their frequencies can lead to an increased amount of effort to deliver crises and humanitarian response efficiently and effectively. In fiscal year 2022, there were 100 disasters declared through FEMA, and the U.S. experienced 18 specifically weather or climate-related disasters where damages cost at least $1 billion. This increase in frequency and growing costs have a large impact on the way response is being considered for the future. In an effort to improve, governments are identifying how to best modernize, to automate and scale, reduce costs, and deliver services faster. When a disaster strikes, time is of the essence to support those in need. The monumental task of coordinating effective relief efforts that span multiple departments or other agencies or private sector organizations requires a lot of agility, consistency, and accuracy to focus care to those who are impacted. And as developments unfold, these changes must be implemented quickly to mitigate risk and continue directing resources where it's needed the most. Unfortunately, there are many challenges standing in the way of an efficient crisis response. When speaking with other government organizations, we find that many are challenged with 3 main things. One being manual process. The government workforce is bogged down with phone calls, email spreadsheets, and yes, even paper still to process a lot of different types of response and requests. This manual process leads to slower processing times and increased risk. Next would be disparate systems. There are many different steps and long processes involved in response, usually between a number of different systems. This separation of data leads to lack of visibility and swivel chairing to complete work. And the slow translation of data between systems can cause data to be outdated and unreliable. And lastly, there are a lot of challenges around coordination of resources. Because of these outdated processes, coordination efforts can be delayed to activate personnel, and there can be a lack of consistency between regions or response types, leading to a lack of visibility, tracking, and overall reporting. Because of these challenges, the current reality is that government systems often create complicated responses and delivery of service. Inside government, processing a response request often spans multiple departments and agencies. Agency A may receive the request, but Agency B may need to step in or be aware of it. And historically, government was siloed by design, but now agencies have become more interconnected, and those barriers hinder their ability to work efficiently. In conversations with government leaders, we usually find that they focus their digital transformation on the front end engagement layer, making it easy for stakeholders to interact or submit a request, but the process can break down behind the scenes when work disperses across team. In the back end, we find many governments still rely on a lot of manual processes that I mentioned earlier, and they often must route work to multiple departments manually to be completed. This makes employees who are trying to coordinate a response less productive. And managing these disconnected technologies is why ServiceNow created our unique platform architecture 18 years ago. So how can the government address these issues and digitalize to unify their emergency response process? The ServiceNow solution enables governments and organizations to support complex coordinated responses in less time with increased accuracy, delivering critical care to those in need. By leveraging the platform, government can intelligently orchestrate and automate work end-to-end across their organization. We do this by automatically routing work into discrete tasks, taking the construct of a process and applying workflow and process automation, removing those manual tedious steps so that employees can focus on the highest value work to better serve their mission. And this modernization allows important services to go from days or weeks to be completed to as little as hours, resulting in faster delivery of the mission. So our solutions provide emergency response teams with a complete suite of tools designed to support a rapid response for people affected by natural and human-made disasters, including response team selection based on location and personnel skill set, asset and equipment management, selectioning, ordering, and tracking and monitoring, mission budget management and overall approval processes, coordination with local and state agencies, suppliers, and partners, automating communications and omni-channel support for your mission success, and things like a mobile app for team members to conduct on-site tasks. These capabilities allow you to improve transparency, responsiveness, and speed for emergencies. It also helps integrate workflows end-to-end between resources, equipment, and talent to deliver care to survivors in and after an emergency. They allow you to be proactive in monitoring, preparing, and having visibility into resources. And lastly, it helps decrease the time it takes to be responsive and activate personnel through automation. Now, don't take our word for it. Today, I'd like to walk you through two specific examples of response solutions built on ServiceNow. Our first example is a federal agency who has a mission-critical wildland fire operations group. Their goal is to coordinate disaster response among various government agencies. This customer built an interagency application on ServiceNow to track and manage records for fire and hazard response. With the growing number of emergencies, the solution was pressed into service quickly and has managed incidents with over 1,000 active resourcing requests for equipment, personnel, and supplies, including things like hand washing stations, mobile sleeper units, and the coordination of key personnel to help support the nation. Next, we partnered with a State Department of Human Services, where during the COVID-19 pandemic, they used ServiceNow to implement a revised interview process for citizens to meet requirements for state-funded services like food assistance and temporary financial assistance. This has supported shifting the process from in-person to a digitalized process for determination of eligibility requirements. So the flexibility of the platform allowed them to produce a new channel to engage with those needing resources due to the COVID-19 emergency, ultimately helping them reduce the spread of the virus and accelerating the need to bring help to their citizens. So with that, I'll transition the presentation to my colleague Jimmy, where he'll be talking through an example of an emergency assistance request on ServiceNow. I'll pause to see if there's any questions before we transition over. Not sure if any have come into the chat.
So far, no, the chat is pretty quiet.
All right. Well, I'll pass it over to you, Jimmy, to take screen share.
All right. Just let me know when you can see my screen, okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, everyone. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I am Jimmy McDaniel. I'm a solution architect here at ServiceNow, and I work with Brittany to support our government customers and really help them understand what our government platform can do to help them support their current and future mission objectives. Today, we are going to walk through a emergency response workflow, and we're going to see several personas here. First one is going to be Julie Lewis. She's with the state of California. She's a response coordinator, and her job really is as the lead to multiple federal agencies, and she's really part of a large team responsible for coordinating those response efforts on the ground during disaster declarations. So she really interacts with the agency a lot. Now, as you would expect, as in many disasters, she's being pulled in a lot of different directions. So what she really wants is a frictionless way to engage, with her federal partners, so she can really better prioritize her resources. So she's we're gonna see her come to a government service portal, get access to quick information, be able to submit a request quickly and easily, and that's going to quickly be routed and automatically sent over to our emergency analyst, John Jason. So again, he's also on the front lines of this emergency response. He's responsible for intake and triage for his specific territory, like the West Coast of the United States. He also handles a lot. He's really managing a bunch of different requests from different state and local agency partners all up and down the West Coast. So what he really needs is a single pane of glass, giving him access to all the information and data to get these requests routed efficiently. Now, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to move over to Lisa Ray. She is an emergency response coordinator. She, again, is responsible for managing a lot of the surface teams, those teams that are on the ground, helping through these emergency responses. And again, her territory is quite large, the entire West Coast. Lots of requests coming her way. She really needs an easy way to visualize that workload, and would really love some help routing the many requests coming into her teams. And then lastly, we're going to have Teddy Taylor. He is the boots on the ground. He's part of those emergency response teams. His main job is to take care of the people and resources on the ground. He needs the same access to tools and data, but he doesn't really want or appreciate a heavy tech burden. He doesn't really have time to spend typing out long forms. He would rather be getting the job done. All of these personas that you see here, really need to feel empowered to serve the mission, and so that they can do what they're trained to do and what they love to do without a lot of technology getting in the way. But we still have to be able to be operationally efficient. So we're going to walk through that use case right now. So we're going to jump into let me reset these. Love how that happens. So that first persona that we're going to see again is Julie. Remember, she's that response coordinator. She's on the ground, in the aftermath of a fire that's, really come through a particular area in California, and she needs to put in a request for emergency response. She heads over to the agency support portal to get some additional research resources for those, for those that are on the ground. And agencies, understand how difficult it is to navigate that the seemingly endless and ever-changing list of rules and regulations. Even state agencies and local agency partners don't necessarily understand everything going on in other agencies. So really, this is why agencies like Fish and Wildlife, Recreation.gov, U.S. Army, they all use the ServiceNow Service Portal framework to put everything into the stakeholders' fingertips, really allowing them that ability to self-serve in an intuitive manner, which really does relieve a lot of pressure on that internal staff. Now, what does Julie have access to? A couple of things here. She's got access to a lot of knowledge content. So if she needs to do get some quick information on how to address a certain situation or what services are available, there's a power of the a full knowledge management engine that's built into the platform to allow you to curate content for your stakeholders. We have this capability called community. So it's really this, the thought of agencies supporting agencies. So how can Julie find out, how other state agencies are solving similar or the same problems? And then, of course, the services that you as an agency would offer to your agency partners, the plethora of different services that you might offer. So let's first take a look here in the middle. She's gonna search across, some out of the box knowledge management or knowledge capability, but we can also connect her to some of those other knowledge repositories that we will potentially have. So she's gonna search for fire. And again, as she types, it's quickly connecting her to some knowledge content that might be relevant for her. So she takes a look at the knowledge content. She reads through it. A couple of things that we can actually do too is really attach some related capabilities or some related services that might be important. Like, so once she understands what services are available, we can connect her directly to, one of those service catalog items to request emergency assistance. So we'll jump directly over to that. Now, as we explore this emergency response form, again, agencies also understand that it takes a lot of data to process a request or to complete a piece of work. But really, what Julie needs is a concise form that really is collecting only the necessary information to really get that request started. So we have a couple of fields that are important, like what is she requesting? Where does she need to go? Or where do we need those resources to be deployed to? But remember, we also said that she's on the ground, so she's probably not going to be using a laptop. So with our service portal capabilities that are responsive in nature, we can certainly present a nice, clean experience to Julie, even if she's on her phone. So let's walk through this. So what emergency is she requesting for? So she's going to say, this is in Riverside County, the Fairview fire. Excuse me. We already know who she is. She's part of the state of California, and she's making a request on behalf of herself. One of the powers of the platform is our capability to keep data separated from other pieces of data. So rest assured that Julie can only see pieces of information that are related to the agency that she's a part of and no other agency. And so we've also filled in some descriptions here just for the sake of the demo, so we're not typing. And now we need to collect that location detail. So she's not quite there. She's, in this location. We automatically recognize the address where she's at. And we will go ahead and submit this for request. Now, what's important here is once she's made this request, it's not going off into a black hole where she doesn't know what's going to happen. The important thing for her is to have complete visibility into the process and where things stand at any given time. So we can accomplish that easily by, excuse me, having just a form for her to come back and take a look at. We can send her notification several different ways. We're going to come back to the desktop view because we're going to come back and visit this here in a few minutes. So we can see this activity kind of updating as we're interacting with with her request. I'm going to stop there for a second and see if anyone has any questions.
Yes, there was a question in the chat. I believe Jen was able to answer, but what is the difference between the response management and creating a priority one incident?
And how did Jen answer that one? So I don't conflict.
I just basically said in the scenario, the individuals and the requester is an external entity that's requesting assistance. That's not an incident, but it falls into service management or case management workflow processes. and that you're about to show a playbook that'll walk an agent through the steps that are required when a service is requested from an agency, and that this is all built on our purpose-built industry solution for government. So that's kind of how I answered it.
I don't think I could have answered that any better. I think that was great. Thanks, Jen.
No problem.
All right. So with that, we will change hats for a moment. So as we've wrapped up Julie's request, as I mentioned, we are going to come back to this, and we're going to see how she stays completely up to date throughout the entire life cycle of her request. So switching over to John, as I mentioned earlier, he's our response analyst. He is responsible for intake and triage for his territory. Wow, cough has come up all of a sudden. And, like I said, he handles a lot, needs access to information and data. So he's going to start his day from his government workspace. And from here, he can see a complete picture of the work that he has in front of him, really allowing him to focus on what's important. The first thing he sees, let me take a quick sip of water, I'm sorry. First thing he sees is a personalized dashboard of metrics and KPIs that are really meaningful to him and the team. And in the spirit of continuous improvement, leadership can easily configure the dashboard to really display whatever metrics are important using no-code capabilities. Now, after he's finished his review, he logs himself in. And what that's doing is, this is allowing him to support requests from many different channels through a single pane of glass. He's not having to swivel chair from one thing to another. But as you can see, that request from Julie has automatically come into him. And this really comes in by way of advanced work assignment. So work can be routed based on any number of business rules. It could be availability, it could be capacity, it could be territory, it could be skills based. It's really getting the stakeholder in front of the best person to help them quickly. And so we're going to accept that work that's come in from Julie. And what's happening is the context of the government workspace is really shifting to help John service Julie's request. And as Jen mentioned earlier, this concept of a playbook is really what's presented to John. And what this is doing is it's a guided process. It's going to walk him through the necessary steps to complete the request. And it's very rare for a cross-functional process to be 100% automated, especially those that are, jumping between, different technologies and different groups that are siloed technically and functionally. So it's going to require a mix of automation and human interaction. And this is where playbooks really allow an agent to interact with a business workflow in real time. And so it empowers agencies like yourselves to really configure those cross-enterprise workflows and really create that unified process. And we'll actually see this process advance forward here automatically as I complete each one of these steps. And so it's really a consistent process that everyone follows regardless of tenure or knowledge level. Now, as most agencies know, not everyone's at the same level. So we need to empower John to be able to move these along as quickly as possible. A couple of ways that we do that is through a capability called Agent Assist. And this is going to use the power of our AI and machine learning to just bring forth relevant information. It could be knowledge articles. It could be, similar cases. So the ability for John to see that there could potentially be requests coming in from different parts of the same organization, right? So you're not crossing those resources. We also have a activity stream. This is really going to be your bird's eye view into this process. This is your audit trail. So anything that happens as part of this process is logged in the activity stream. And then anyone that comes behind John can easily pick up and see where things are. And we can even get down to the field level. So at times, if you need to know the the what, where, and why about a particular field as part of this process, you can see who's changed it and when that actually happened. Lastly, we have this 360 view of the organization. So that requesting stakeholder probably has a lot of different requests coming into the organization. So you need to be able to see from a top down how you interact with that particular organization, cases that are coming in, where they are in particular stages, you know, the number of interactions that you potentially have across many different channels. And this is configurable. So you can surface information that might be that would be relevant, but it could be coming from a different system per se. All right, let's jump back to the playbook for a second. So that first step is we're going to review the details. We see the information that's been submitted. We have the address information. So we're going to submit this to say that the request was valid. We can attach any notes that we like to, or any additional attachments that we think are important as part of this. And then as we move this to the review stage, there's actually, I should back up and say this. What you're seeing is our out-of-the-box service request playbook, which is customizable and configurable for your own processes. There could be a review stage where you might want to send out, just do some inspection or pre-inspection before you actually get boots on the ground. We're going to step through this real quickly. We're going to request an inspection, but this is also where you'll want to check for those similar requests. So as I mentioned earlier, the capability for you to know that a different part of the agency, you know, might be requesting the same or similar resources, you know, being able to surface that so you're not overburdening those teams on the ground. So we'll go ahead and quickly request an inspection. And as we're stepping through, we'll go ahead and record our findings. We're going to create a work order here in a moment, but we'll just step through this review process and get to the processing stage. And once we move to process, this is where we have an opportunity to start that work, and let's get someone assigned to it. Now, the great thing about this is, you know, the work order that we're creating, we're using part of the platform and you know, business rules to get this work assigned. Let me perform the work. Let me quickly refresh. And so once that work order, once we get that work order, you know, submitted, missing the button. All right, let's see. Oh, there it is. Let's go ahead and create that work order. And again, we're using the power of the platform and the power of automation to create a work order, and the power of templating to create the associated tasks with those and get those automatically assigned to the those on the ground. We're gonna wait for a second. These demo instances could be a little more performant. Okay. Try that one more time. Create work order. There we go. And of course, John Jason, while he's not performing the work on the ground, he's got full visibility into those work orders and work order tasks as they get created. So as we see, we've needed assistance for, you know, after a fire, we got associated work order tasks. We have one here, but of course, emergency response might take, you know, dozens to hundreds of associated tasks, but we can get those absolutely assigned. And so, let's see. And we'll go ahead and close that. Now we're going to change hats again and move over to our pair, Lisa Ray and Teddy Taylor. I'm going to stop there for a second, though, and see if there's any questions, perhaps.
No questions.
Additional questions on the use case yet.
All right, perfect. So now what we're looking at is a combination view of Lisa Ray, who was that emergency response coordinator, and Teddy Taylor. In our use case, in our diagram flow a little bit ago, we showed that more in a linear path. But the truth is, they have to work in tandem, right? They have to coordinate back and forth to ensure that that these requests and that the emergency response is appropriate. And so first, we're going to look at Lisa. She regularly manages, many teams, across numerous simultaneous incidents. And then, but this dispatcher workspace that you're seeing here, it really allows her to quickly see where resources are dispersed and really what they're working on. So she has all of her team members, the tasks that are assigned, those small lines are estimated travel. And then as some of this stuff is being worked, you can also see SLA impacts. We have a map view that really shows where her teams are at any given point. And this work order that we just put in was actually assigned to Nina Lisa, I believe. And so we need to reassign that over to Teddy Taylor. So all we have to do is drag that back over to Teddy and then confirm that assignment. And save that. Okay. And of course, a few other things too. She needs to have visibility into all of the different tasks and teams and how they're working. Certainly filterable. All of these upcoming tasks are showing by default, but she's got many other filter options. So if she wants to see all active tasks, those for specific crews, if an organization has tasks assigned to contractors, we have out of the box contractor capabilities. So you can contract to other response teams, assign that work appropriately, and but we'll keep that like it is. And then we're going to jump over here to Teddy Taylor for a minute, and we're going to refresh his screen. So he'll see notifications coming in. We have this the sixth one coming in. We'll say that this one, which one was it? Work order task number 135. There it is. It's been assigned, and we'll see it at the on his list. No, it's not showing. There it is, 135. Now, a couple of things to note. As he's got access to all the information associated with this response request, but he's not having to do a lot of searching. He's got the top level work order that he can see all the information about it, who the contact is, who's assigned to, the location, and he can accept or reject this work. As he accepts, the important part here is the system is constantly communicating back to Lisa. He's not having to call in and report his status. You'll see that work order has changed colors to indicate that he has now accepted the work. And we can also track travel time. And we'll see that it's moved it around to show that he's actively working on it. He's traveling to that actual task, and now he's actually starting work. Now, this is where he gets an opportunity to capture all of his work results as he needs to. He's not going to have to type a lot. Now, there are sometimes too, he might need to perform a checklist. We can do checklist type tasks here as well, where he can just, check off the things that he's working on. And then once he's done, a couple things he can do. 9 times out of 10, he's going to have other tasks that need to be performed. So he can see let me go to this and go to related tasks. And he can see any sibling work order tasks and actually create new ones. So let's say he's on the ground, he sees that perhaps that there's some additional teams that need to be a part of the emergency response. He can create a new task tied to this work order and just say additional help, done, and hit submit. And what that's going to do is it's going to send that back to HQ for Lisa, and then have her, the system either automatically assign the appropriate team based off of the business rules that you've configured, or give Lisa an opportunity to assign that ad hoc if needed. Now that he's completed the work, let's take a look at his interface. So the whole purpose behind the mobile interface is to put the most important information at his fingertips. So what I mean by that is he can see his group tasks. So if he's a part of a crew or a team and they're all assigned to the same one, he can see some of those that they're working on. He can see his particular schedule for the day, the week, or the month quickly and easy. And of course, he's got a map, so tasks that are assigned to him, he can easily see on the map itself. Obviously, if I were in California, this would be a much better view, but this is where all of his tasks are actually located in California. And then a couple of other things are his equipment. So the concept of that truck stock or those consumables that he would use in part of an emergency response, he can track all of that equipment and parts that are needed for his work. But more importantly, it gives Lisa at HQ an ability to track that as well. Now, it's also possible too that he might need inventory from someone else. So he has an ability to check for a part from another team who might be on the other side of the fire, perhaps. So if they've got something that he'll need, he can request those parts and then work with that other team to coordinate that handoff. I'm gonna stop there for a second and see if anyone's got any further questions.
Yeah, hey Jimmy, it's Jennifer. So there's a question about the air traffic controller view for Lisa Ray and the dots that are showing on the map. Was wondering if you could drill in a little bit to show them how the map can display both the work orders and the technicians' locations.
Yeah, so this is one particular assigned work order, and let me just do this. Let me just change to a full map view so we can see that a little bit better. So we can see that the tasks are assigned, and in the pin, it's bringing forth the important information, such as the particular work order task, priority state, who it's assigned to, and what the scheduled start time is. Now, all of this is configurable. You can choose to determine whatever information you want in this box, but more importantly, I can jump back out to that work order task to get further details.
Does that address your question, Kevin? You can just let us know if it does not by typing into the chat. How do you get the exact location? So when Jimmy created the initial case on the portal view, basically he dropped that pin of where that business was or where the location was, where the incident was. And the system can translate that information into the geocodes for Latin long. And that Latin long helps you then drop that onto the map. And it's also can be utilized to actually determine the right resource to get dispatched to that location. And I'll address that in 1 second when we start talking about how to determine resources. So here's where we dropped the pin of where the issue was. And the system
now, this is the starting
that.
pin.
Yep.
I'll say that this uses the device's location capabilities, whether it's built in the browser or built into the phone itself, to have the starting location. But of course, Julie could say, she's at, right here. This is the exact spot I might be. She can change her location. And, as Jen said, based off of the integration with Google Maps, we're able to quickly geolocate where that actually is and capture that lat and long that those values.
And I'll just add on to that, that if the person is a known entity and we have their address for their business, right, and they don't need to change it, obviously that information comes through. But when we're talking about people, our citizenry, being mobile and wanting to be able to report things while they're on the go, being able to drop their PIN in alternative locations is very critical.
And so, as Jen mentioned, we'll take that PIN, use that as the starting point for the work order or for that emergency request, and use that as for the basis of finding the right person or the right team to be dispatched. And again, that could be any number of business rules. It could be just regionally or territory based. So we have territory capabilities in the platform too, so that you can, draw your territories via a polygon, for instance. We have a couple of here just to show you, California being one. You can make those a lot more granular if you need. So that's one way to get work routed to the right person. The other one is proximity. So if you've got resources out and about, and they have availability, like they've got holes in their like blocks in their schedule where they're open, the system can automatically assign it to that nearest person based off of how close they are to it, how quickly they can get to that within that SLA timeframe, and if they've got availability.
So that addresses Dana's question about assessing resources, and the responses that I gave in terms of the configuration of rules or territories to utilize to determine the right persons or the right crews, and also could be external resources as well, external contractors that you might utilize to help fulfill these types of requests. And Kevin, your question, yes, we can suggest a team based on location.
Yeah, that's helpful. I can't see the questions coming in, so.
I was gonna go ahead and start reviewing any that came in, and since that one is tied to the ones that we just did, I thought I'd interrupt, so my apologies.
All right. Nope, go ahead. What other questions that we have?
What happens if the location tool does not work due to no cell service? Are you talking about no cell service for the person after they, from the person who's submitting the request or from the technician's request? Oh, I was just talking on mute, Jimmy. The next question that came in was about what happens if the location tool does not work because a person doesn't have cell service. And so from my perspective, the submitter would be able to manually type in a location. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, there's a couple of directions, right? From that requester side, you can, as Jen said, you can always capture that via, hand typing. Now, if they don't have cell service or access to data, submitting the request is going to be difficult anyway. So we'd have to investigate alternative methods for doing that. That might be a call center situation where they have to find some low bandwidth cell service, perhaps. Now, on the resource side, on the team side, sometimes they're going to be in situations where they don't have cell service either. Then the system could default to manual or to some background business rules, like could be like a first in, first out. Like let's say you've got 4 teams in the area, servicing the same type of request, and then they're just automatically or auto assigned just based off of different business rules, like priority, availability, those things. And then, of course, we still have to solve for the low bandwidth situation. Any other questions?
I think we addressed them all. There was a question around how to assess resources, understand the availability, which goes back to the dispatcher workspace. So I believe we covered that.
Yeah. Now, the whole point behind the dispatcher workspace is, just to kind of come back to that. We talked about territories, but it's really managing by exception. So we want the system to assign as much as it can out of the box, so that Lisa's not having to do all of that work now. But she, like I said, she can manage by exception. So those that aren't able to be assigned, she can easily drag those. These are all assigned, but I mean, so she can easily drag them to someone's schedule. She can move them around. As I mentioned, we like this one here that's assigned to Teddy. Maybe he needed to get to this work, this request sooner, so we can start taking things off his plate, so we can move these around to other people if we need to. So it really gives her a lot of automation to assign the work, without her having to touch it, and then just really only handle the ones that are outside of that window.
I think we addressed all the questions.
Okay. Well, that leaves us with a couple minutes left. Brittany, we can hand it back over to you.
One more just came in. How does the resource get assigned the work on cell? So do you want to talk about the mobile app again and the ability to view my tasks and my work?
Yeah, so what happens is once these are assigned, whether they're manual or automated through the system, Teddy, the on-site resource, is going to get a notification. So it'll be a push notification directly through the app. It'll pop up in the window or on his home screen, for instance. I've got notifications turned off just to keep the interface quiet, but that's one way. So he'll get a pop-up. He'll also get a notification inside the app, or if you've got an SMS provider, you can configure the system to send him a text message too.
Ultimately, we find our customers live, out of the app itself, so they automatically get updates with assigned work as needed. Any other questions? Are there dashboard or reports that can be run to get data on previous emergency incidents, for instance, to see all resources deployed for a specific fire?
Yes, there are out-of-the-box reporting capabilities that are built into the solution across many different areas of work. Plus, our reporting and dashboarding engine is also low-code. So as long as you understand the information or the data you're trying to capture, you can create your own dashboards and widgets to show the data in a method that works best for you.
Another question, how do you view all of the responses for a resource?
When you say a resource, so like when you say responses for a resource, you're talking about things that are assigned to a particular person?
I believe so.
Okay. So if I'm looking at the dispatcher workspace, so I don't have crews set up in this particular instance. I've got individuals, but So as I dive into Teddy Taylor, I'll see his record, and we see all the work order tasks that are assigned to him. They're coming up shortly. That he's currently working on, any skills. This is important too if you've got tasks that require specific skills or specific certifications for them to be able to tackle. So one of the capabilities built into the platform is skills-based routing to take care of, making sure you've got the most skilled resource on this fire response as possible. This is one way. Again, we have reporting capabilities that can surface this information too. But this is just a quick way to get to it from the dashboard. I mean, from the dispatcher workspace.
So you can configure reports as well to understand, the amount of incidents that a resource has been tied to. I guess the officer history, Dana. Hopefully that helps answer your question. And then for Newman, as far as how to define the resources in their schedules, deploying resources and their schedules are all predefined. So yes, you can we have automatic work assignment. I don't know, Jimmy, if you want to talk about that based on those skill sets that Jimmy mentioned, or it can be first come, first serve of who's available. It's flexible based off of how you'd like it to operate based off of your preference, essentially.
Yeah, and so the example that you're seeing here, we have several advanced work assignment rules at play. So with any field technician, there's a proximity-based rule. So let's say Teddy is the closest one. Those get assigned to him, and he's got availability. The second one is based off of schedule. So you see Alyssa Chenoy here in the middle. She's grayed out. It means she's not working at the current time. So this is all of these are on shift. These are off shift. So you'll see that she can't be assigned to those. Now, once she comes on shift, then and she's on this particular crew, then then work can automatically be assigned to her, as part of those work assignment rules.
You create temporary access to external agencies to dashboard data or reports, since a lot of times in an emergency incident, there are multiple agencies.
Yeah, so the way that you would do that is through that public-facing portal. If they're just viewing information, they're not actually acting on, or performing work against those, then we can, accomplish that through that portal experience that we showed for Julie. But if they're working on some of these tasks, the solution has a concept of internal and external agencies, so that you can support those, so that you can have other agencies help support.
There's also ways to export reporting and information as needed, but
Right. So you have the ability to support those dashboards, to publish those dashboard widgets to those external stakeholders, to finish that point off.
So we do not have the external agency component configured in this demonstration. I think that's an excellent topic to take offline, Kevin. So we'll follow up with you to do a deeper dive. Given we only have 5 minutes left, I think we'll assess any further questions offline, and I'll take over a screen share to kind of wrap things up. Can you see this okay?
Yep, you can see it just fine.
All right. Well, we wanted to thank you all so much for your time today. We really appreciate the engagement in the chat. It really made it a productive webinar and session. We really enjoyed collaborating with you all, and hopefully gave you some insight into how flexible the ServiceNow platform can be to help support some of these post-emergency or emergency incident response requests and issues. So next up on our emergency management webinar series, so for those of you, if this is your first session joining this series, we have many more along the next several months, tailored towards how ServiceNow helps with emergency management. So next on Tuesday, May 16th at 1 p.m., we'll have a session on decision support workflows. So see how a police department uses ServiceNow to get the full picture of an incident and manage the particular risk of that incident, and access a single pane of glass for more real-time decisions. So feel free to scan the QR code to make sure you're registered for that session. It should also prompt you for the other ones that are going to be happening within the next several months. And again, thank you all so much for your time and engagement. I also have our contact information listed here on this slide. If you want to reach out to Brittany or to Jimmy or myself, we'll be able to direct your question to the appropriate person and further discussion. So with that, go ahead and conclude today's presentation, and we'll send out a follow-up with all of the recording and slideware and further information for you all to review as well. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.